share their experience about IT and what they did to improve their business. Okay. Now, our two guests they have a very interesting businesses, and they're both leaders in their industry. So I'd like to call onto the stage Mr. Dennis San Juan, Mr. Dennis San Juan of Metro Gas Sales Corporation. And then I'd like to also call on the stage Mr. Rain Tello of Wilcon Builders.
Good morning to everyone. I think I'll give them a background first of our company, Metro Gas. Metro Gas is a distributor of LPG, obviously with our name. We are a distributor of Petron Gasol. Metro Gas is an independent brand, it's a company-owned brand, and obviously we're engaged in distribution of LPG in areas of Marikina, San Mateo, and Montalban. In Rizal, proximal to Marikina, also Rizal areas like Tipolo, Cainta, and others. That's it.
Please sit down so we can get comfortable.
Hi, my name is Lorraine, and I'm from Wilcon Builders. We sell tiles and all sorts of finishing materials. We have about 15 branches in Luzon and one in Davao. And we basically supply retail. We're a retail chain for finishing materials. And according to Jan, we're one of the leaders or the leaders in the industry.
All right. You're actually the reason we invited them, the both of them, because they're very well known in the industry. And another thing that's interesting is they're both very young. So that's the first thing that struck me when I went to their office. Sabi ko, babata naman ito, mga presidente, mga CIO, and they're all both very young. So let me ask you, siguro, Ms. Lorraine, how did you get into the business? For one so young, you're already managing a very large operation.
Okay. Actually, the company is private. It's a family business. So, you could say wala akong choice. Pero, yun nga, my father started the business and it's been growing. So, as you know, yung medyo the older generation, they don't really know a lot about IT, things like that. So, for me, it was kind of a hobby that I got into. So when I entered the company, I started to dabble in IT, and eventually I found IT Group. And you really cannot survive retail without IT. That's really a fact. You know? I'm not just talking about because we're very big or ano. I think medium size or ano, you really need to invest in IT. You need to do research, constantly look into IT. So yun, parang because of that, naging involved na talaga ako sa company. Yun.
How about you, Dennis? How did you're the president of Metro Gas, right?
Actually, it's also a family business, same with Wilcon Builders. The challenge for me is how do I grow more the company, since it's a challenge and since I'm the eldest. So with that, the problems that I faced was pilferage, problems in internal control, how would I manage the customers. So with that problem, so I was researching then and I found out that IT would help me, also with the help of IT Group. They educated me about CRM, how would I manage my customers, different types of customers. We have households, we have corporate accounts, and we have also the resellers. The typical retailers, sari-sari stores, how would you manage 50,000 households, 3,000 resellers, and giving them the service, consistent service, and tailor-fit services for every customer. So with that, we ventured into IT with CRM.
So you mentioned na you're both second generation, parang sa family business, second generation kayo, you're second generation entrepreneurs. So one of the things you mentioned was that you realized and that IT is very important sa business. And when you say important, you like Lorraine, you mentioned that to survive in retail you need IT. In what way? How so?
Well, the way I see it, there are a lot of things that are impossible to do without IT. Consolidation of data. I mean, if you're going to have your daily sales report and your trending done every day, it's impossible to do that if you have, like, we have 30,000 SKUs. We have 30,000 unique products, and it's impossible to collate all that manually. Unless, we have like 1,000 people or 10,000 people doing it. It's impossible. I mean, we would take a month, 2 months in order for us to consolidate all this data. So, IT gives the advantage of being able to do all that very, very quickly, so that we have information when we need it. I mean, if we do it like manually and it's 1 month later, what is the worth of the data? It's useless.
You mentioned that it's useless. Why so? Why do you need the information?
Because the data would be obsolete.
Okay.
Right? So, I mean, 1 month later, the trending may be different, especially if your business is seasonal, like restaurants or supermarkets. You have peak seasons, you have low seasons, and you need information instantly.
Ikaw, Dennis, is your business seasonal as well? Do you face the same challenges?
Same with selling with tiles, since LPG's demand is high in demand during December, especially household cooks a lot because of Christmas. But during summer, that's our lean season. The value for me, kasi like Wilcon Builders, at the end of the day, you have to have a reconciliation of all your products that are being dispatched from your warehouse. So reconciliation in terms of inventory and sales, this is important to us.
So parang you're using IT because parang you're saying without it would be impossible to do business.
Yes, like what she
Very, very
mentioned, you
hard.
need lots of people to encode all to collate all the daily sales reports, the inventory reports. Without IT, it's impossible.
Okay, but Dennis, you also mentioned something about CRM or customer relationship management, and that's an IT project, right? But that doesn't really, it's not more of a survival or because you need to. Why did you implement a CRM project?
First, during 10 years ago, we only have order takers. What we want to do is to professionalize the way they handle calls. So we set up our call center. That's our primary objective, just to professionalize as to how they handle calls, the opening spears, like that. So there's no tool to manage all the calls that are being handled. So we decided to put it in a database. I consulted IT group to get a CRM.
And what results did you get from when you put that information in database? What do you use it for?
For tracking of the calls, what time do our customers oftenly call, tracking of their purchase habits. With CRM, we found out that most of our customers calls from 7 to 12 in the morning, and during 1 o'clock to 3 o'clock, there are a few customers who are calling. With that, we thought that our manpower is not that utilized. So we came up with a marketing plan, a marketing program. We called it Afternoon Delight, where customers can call at this time. And when they call at this time, they get a discount or a preview. That's helpful to us. With that insights, we are able to utilize all of our agents. We don't need to add up more inbound agents who handle the calls. We don't need to add up delivery personnel.
So you're saying from that database, when you implemented the CRM system, you were able to come up with marketing programs. So you provide discounts if they order at the
Yes,
time.
actually, also with CRM, we're able to tap other services like with Globe. Because Globe wants to partner us with their mobile payments like Gcash. They saw the potential since we have a customers of around 50,000 households. Why not top 5%, around 85% of my customers use Gcash?